Hello there, I'm JRT and this is Rapid Record Review Roundup. Where I cover all the albums I didn't quite get the chance to do in the week because I was a busy boy. There's some older albums on here from the start of the month just because as June came into being, I was finishing off my dissertation and starting the channel up, so they got written reviews on my website. Check out my website if you haven't already. They didn't get a written review because I was busy, alright? Leave it out, yeah? Links to all of those written reviews will be down in the description, and whilst you're down there perusing, if you wouldn't mind clicking the like button and subscribing, that would be lovely. It'd be very kind of you. I'd really appreciate you. Might even sing a song for you. So let's get right into it with the sophomore effort from Chloe x Halle, or Chloe and Halle. Singer-songwriters, producers, actresses, just all-round talented people, really. I quite enjoyed this project, to be honest, mainly for the harmonious vocals throughout. Going into it, I was a bit worried how that dynamic would play into it, and if it would ever become a bit too samey, a bit too much. However, they effectively become one unitary voice on this, as we rarely hear their voice divided up. The layers of vocals on multiple tracks create an almost choir of their voices, but at no point does it ever seem to me that there's too much or just an overload of the girls' voices. It's just enough, and it's a beautiful effect, heavenly at times. Their unified stance also applies to their approach to songwriting. They create a consistent point of view throughout the lyrical content that is linked cohesively around the major theme of love and dating in the modern world. And my favourite tracks include the enthralling Tipsy, which has this quality to it that I just quite can't pin down. I'm not sure if there's a slight voice manipulation, but the way they switch up their singing just builds into this general air of mystique. And the titular track Ungodly Hour, which the girls worked with the almost veteran pop hit makers Disclosure. And yes, you can hear it's a Disclosure beat, however the girls really make it their own. That's probably helped by the fact the girls did a lot of production on this album themselves, which just proves how talented they are. Overall, I think I would give it a 7.5. Right at the start of the month, we had Australian indie rock outfits Rolling Blackout Coastal Fevers dropping Sideways to New Italy. It certainly isn't a bad album, firstly, I'll get that out of the way. However, it is a somewhat middling entry into their discography of largely plain and simple indie rock. It sort of scratches the itch, but doesn't really do more than that. It doesn't offer anything new. It does have a summery feel to it, which this world certainly doesn't at the moment. But beyond that, it does sort of lack a proper identity. If you're a fan of this genre, this sound, it'll probably go over a lot better, but that's not to say I'm not a fan of the genre. Especially the UK flavoured stuff, Rolling Blackout Coastal Fever kind of take inspiration from, a heavy inspiration from. I grew up on the stuff. So whilst this feels similar to that era, it does feel very cookie cutter, copy pasted, and not a proper reflection of the band's talent, judging on their previous stuff. However, there were some decent cuts on this. The opening track, second of the first. That being said, I really couldn't give this album more than 6 overall. Moving into the world of hip hop and the polished sounds of Armand and their latest Shrines. The duo are now onto their 4th full-length LP, and they've properly refined their sound to a T. I haven't really got any major criticisms or complaints beyond the fact that this album stays in its lane, knows what it needs to do and wants to do, and does it well. And what I mean by that, does it innovate? Does it blow me away? Is it really new and exciting and fresh? No, not really. However, not all music has to be groundbreaking, push the envelope, bring something new. A strong, decent album can be found from music that is just polished, well refined and worked on. It doesn't have to set a new standard. At times, a project lacks cohesion thematically, largely due to the fact there isn't really an overarching theme throughout the project. But again, that's okay for an album. It have a space opera told throughout multiple tracks, especially if the quality of the tracks that are on this are very good, which they are, luckily. And whilst the lyrics can feel unconnected at times, completely unrelated and almost whimsical and nonsensical, it does produce some really memorable moments. It's just a solid project with some really witty lyricism and some really nice beats. If you're a hip-hop head, definitely worth a listen. All things considered, I'm leaning towards 7.5. In the same rough genre, but a bit more experimental and to more public interest, was Run the Jewels' latest self-titled Run the Jewels 4. A lot of what can be said for Armand and Shrines applies here. It's a 4th studio LP that cements and confirms the sound of the duo without really pushing it further or evolving it too much. But to say that Killer Mike and LP haven't improved since their duet together would be completely unfair. However, that same bass formula of Killer Mike's more gangster rap on top of more experimental beats does still apply. Personally, I find this to be their best effort yet, with production at its most crisp and their lyrics at the most pertinent and crafted. Context is everything. When the wheels started turning on this project, I don't think Killer Mike or LP could have predicted the hellscape this album was going to be born into. World context is impossible to separate from music, in my opinion. Not only from the creation of it, world events influences the lyrics, the mood, so many different variables that are both consciously and unconsciously affected by what's around us. And it's the same when you listen to the music. For me, it's impossible to listen to this music and not think about the world around it. Maybe if it came out another time, my feelings, other people's feelings, other critics' feelings would be different. However, this is the only reality I get to listen to it in. And sadly, these words applied before the flashpoint of the death of George Floyd, and seemingly will apply further into a increasingly dystopian looking future. It's just heartbreaking to think that when Killer Mike uses the line "I can't breathe" on Walking in the Snow, he isn't actually talking about Floyd, and it was recorded 6 months before that happened. Instead, it was inspired by the very similar case of Eric Garner, which just goes to show how long this issue has existed and how common an occurrence it is. And whilst yes, it is easy and it's important to become bogged down in the messaging and the meaning of the album, the production is also as powerful and as strong. In the UK indie scene, we had the debut LP from Sports Team. I enjoyed most of this project, but it isn't without its flaws. Whilst the band isn't afraid to poke fun at themselves or the Middle England that formed them, they do have a tendency to sort of punch down on those that they perceive lesser than them. Overall, it kind of sounds like the exact type of person Pulp was singing about in Common People, and coincidentally, the lead singer also mimics the delivery of Pulp's lead singer, Jarvis Cocker. This faux working class but not really act does get tiring very quickly, but there is some talent behind the band, I can't deny that. Here's the Thing is a very catchy, repetitive tune that lasted with me the most. The album as a whole, I'd give it a 7.5 on reflection. Definitely worth a listen if you're a fan of UK indie rock. If you're a fan of UK indie rock and want to get into it, I think they're going to be a prominent act in the scene going forward. 2 albums that didn't get a full written review because I was too busy was Bob Dylan's new record and Teyana Taylor's The Album. Taylor has spoken a lot in the past about how she didn't like the direction Kanye took on her last project, KTSE, or Keep the Same Energy. However, that being said, it was 22 minutes of just brilliant, fantastic songwriting and songs. Overall, track lists, even though it came from Kanye's very famous set of Wyoming recordings with 7-track masterpieces that dropped seemingly week after week. And yes, I can understand the frustration of having songs cut and your artistic direction being taken away from you. However, on the album, where Kanye is no longer the lead producer, you could fit KTSE 4 times over on it almost. The album is the complete opposite of KTSE, much to the detriment of Teyana Taylor and her music. It's just bloated and forgettable compared to the really quick and snappy and memorable songs from KTSE. The only saving graces are songs that were cut from KTSE and have Kanye all over them, or features that kind of carry songs. It's no surprise to me that the better cuts on here are Ye produced tracks. It was a complete slog to get through, and I just can't give it any more than a 4. Similarly, Bob Dylan's Rough and Rowdy Ways just didn't really sit very well with me. Another album that kind of just endlessly dragged on and on without offering much beyond the first 2 minutes. There wasn't many songs that after 2 minutes I gained anything more from. It just pales in comparison to his earlier work. And that's harsh because Bob Dylan has such a brilliant back catalogue. However, yeah, I just got bored. Dylan's zany lyricism and subject matters were interesting, but just not really enthralling to keep me on the hook. In my mind, I think a 5.5 is about right. That's all from me. Tomorrow we'll have my favourite LPs of the year, and on Wednesday we'll have a review of the new Jessie Ware project. If you wouldn't mind helping me grow by subscribing, or let me know down below your thoughts, I'd love some engagement. It's just my opinion, but I want to hear your opinion. No one's wrong, no one's right. Theoretically. That's all. If you wouldn't mind sharing the video with your friends or leaving a like, that would also be very much appreciated. Thanks again, and stay safe.